Hello, everyone. This is
P.O.C.
People of Creativity, and today we're going to be interviewing a playwright, Brittany Fisher. So, hey Brittany, how are you doing?
I am doing great. How are you all?
I'm doing good. What about you guys?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing good. The sun is out.
Yes, I'm very excited to be interviewing you.
It really is. We got to like read a little bit of your play, so that's exciting. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am currently a first year playwright in the playwriting program at Juilliard. And before that, I went to James Madison University, studied journalism, and didn't really like journalism, and that's kind of what landed me where I am now. So that's kind of where I am, just continuing to create content, create work, and yeah, hopefully get a little further with my career.
No, you'll definitely get further in your career. I'm manifesting it. What are your inspirations as a playwright, though?
Um, I would definitely say, like everything I write kind of starts with a topic. So definitely topics just like um, issues like in the Black community and things I can relate to personally, or things that I guess see or witness that I want to kind of touch on in my work. As far as people, I would definitely say one of my biggest inspirations for even becoming a playwright or pursuing playwriting is definitely Lynn Nottage, and her play Ruined is like one of the first plays that I ever actually read, and so that kind of like led me to think, okay, I definitely want to do this. I want to write stories like this that kind of can move people the way that this story moved me. So um, yeah, I would definitely say her. I would definitely say honestly like people around me too. Even though like I don't know how common that is, but just people around me, friends, family. It's kind of like stories that you hear your parents tell that you get a little inspiration and you're like, oh, I kind of want to write about that, or I want to touch on that, so like kind of weave it into your artistry. So yeah, I'm just kind of inspired by my surroundings and great playwrights like that, I would say.
That's beautiful, and I love Lynn Nottage as well. She's brilliant. So when did you actually start writing, and what have you learned from then to now, just with your experience?
Right. So I started writing period when I was like very young. I would just like write stories and like probably elementary school, like short stories and poetry. As far as playwriting, I didn't get into playwriting until I was in undergrad. Um, so I was never like a theater kid or anything like that. I didn't know anything about theater. But I think it's something that I've always kind of sat on the sidelines and watched and been interested in, but I just didn't know like how to kind of get into it, because it just seems so like outside of my realm or outside of my reach. So when I was in undergrad, I actually had a creative writing minor, and I was able to take a playwriting class. So that was kind of like my first introduction to playwriting, and my first opportunity to really have guidance with just getting into it instead of kind of just never touching on it because I just didn't know where to start. But yeah, so that was the start of it. And while I was in undergrad and taking that class, I ended up having a short play called Red. I wrote it in that class, and it ended up being in the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival, um, and like just featured in there. And that was kind of like my first experience of like people actually seeing something that I wrote or being able to experience something that I wrote. So from there, like it was that was the experience that made me say, okay, like I think I can continue with this. Think I can keep doing this. So yeah, that was kind of like how it all started, I would say.
I like how you said you didn't like start off as like a theater chick or anything. It kind of just like naturally came to you. I think a lot of people, they kind of think to get started with things like this, you have to like be experienced with it at a very, very young age. And that wasn't the case for you. Well, you're still very young. People assume that you have to like start doing it as soon as you're like 5 or something. So I like that it was a gradual process. And look at you now in Juilliard. Go up.
Thank you.
And I love how, like, I don't know, I feel like it kind of helped you find like your love for it. And that's what like I really enjoy, especially about like reading your stories. And I want to know, like, is there a specific type of narrative you usually tend to lead towards or like want to tell, or does it just come and you just kind of find your inspiration and go with the flow?
Right. I would say like I would say I definitely kind of find my inspiration and go with the flow. I don't really start anything like knowing exactly where it's going to go or even like always having any idea because I feel like every time I start a new play, I'm like, how did I write the last play? Like, how did I even start this? How did I even do this? It's like starting all over. It's like writing a new, like your first play again for me. So I feel like I said, I kind of try to focus on topics that I love and like that I'm really passionate about. And that's pretty much what drives the start of every project for me. Um, just like issues in the Black community and even like my play, How to Bruise Gracefully, that you know, and just like with knowing that the risk of pregnancy related deaths for Black women are like 4 times higher than for white women, and that like just knowing that topic and even the topic of Dr. J. Marion Sims and that whole narrative, that's what drove the piece for me, and that's kind of how it happens with every project. Just everything is driven by like my passion for this story or the topic that I want to cover, I would say.
And that creates such dynamic stories. I remember the first time I read How to Bruise Gracefully, I cried. I was crying, and my mom came over and she was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "This play is so good." Because I think something about that, like innate passion, just like wanting to know more about that topic and just kind of going with the flow. And the way that you have your writing is so grounded in like a sense of reality that like it just brings this element of like captivation to the audience and to the actors and to anyone reading it. And I really, really admire that.
Yeah, it's extremely realistic. How do you make such, I don't know, rich and just realistic dialogue? Like it sounds so natural reading it. I can hear them saying it. I can hear them talking about it. It doesn't sound like anything forced. Like how do you do that? That can be hard for some people, but you do it flawlessly. What's your secret?
Well, thank you. Honestly, I would say the easiest thing is just like kind of thinking about how I talk to my own friends and like just like how millennials and like Gen Z all like kind of communicate with each other and just knowing the lingo, and it's kind of like I don't know, it's kind of natural. It's like we all know like the lingo that we use with our friends or whatever the case, and I think just talking or like having the characters speak as if I would speak, and it gets a little different like if they're older characters or whatever the case, but I think just tapping into the conversations that I have on the regular basis, whether it's like with my parents or with older people, I think that's kind of what makes it easy, because otherwise if I'm not kind of tapping into that natural conversation that I have myself, that's when it starts to get forced or feel forced. So I think that's like my main inspiration for that, just kind of like tapping into my own conversations.
Yes, and the sincerity in your dialogue is so authentic and sincere. Just it helps really provoke them, like help the audience understand the message of your story. It's beautiful.
you.
I wanted to know also, like, what is it like workshopping plays in a dynamic setting? Because I know, like, you've had the chance, like, twice to be able to go through the Cadence Theater, like, workshop setting, and that is like a constant, like, having an experienced playwright, like, over your shoulder and helping you and guiding you. Like, how did that kind of change your view, or did you learn anything new, or like, what was that like?
Yeah, so I feel like I learned everything from that experience. Just the Cadence Fellowship. I feel like because I was so new to theater and I still feel so new to theater, I think it was just so valuable to have that time and to have that guidance from an experienced playwright because I mean, it's kind of like what other time are you really going to get that? Like you don't really have like when you're not in those settings, or even if you have a personal relationship with these playwrights, you know, it's kind of hard to just have people read your stuff, especially on a regular basis and like multiple drafts of it. So I think it was definitely so valuable in my journey, and I'm just still pulling from things I learned in that room and even things that I'm learning now at school, like with the, workshopping in different settings. I'm still like pulling from all of that, those valuable things that I learned. And um, I think it's really important just to have that community and have that experience of not only having, like a mentor, but just being around like-minded people and being around other writers, other playwrights who can give their feedback. And because everybody's perspective is always so different, and you always, I think, learn something new about yourself as a writer and about your work in those settings. So I think it's been extremely valuable for me, and I definitely know that I would not be in the position I am today without those experiences. So I'm very grateful for that.
And with those experiences, do you feel like your race or your gender has really affected your writing or your experience in any way?
Yes, so I feel like even I feel like before those experiences, that's kind of like a place that I wrote from anyway. Just like my race, my gender, like I said, just covering those types of topics. But I think um, being in those spaces and being in rooms where nobody else looked like me or very few people looked like me, I think it just drove the desire even further to want to highlight those things, and not to say it in a bad way of like I'm in this room and nobody else looks like me, but I think it just made me more aware of like I guess how it's a little harder, I guess, for people that look like me, and like it's a little harder to tell difficult stories or just highlight the stories that address the issues in our community, and that can sometimes be met with like backlash and negativity. So I think if anything, just being in those spaces really helped prepare me for that. As I'm gonna have more eyes on my work, or maybe it's gonna be like more publicly seen, I feel like it's really preparing me for like to be in those spaces where your work isn't always accepted and the stories that you want to tell aren't always met with positivity. So yes, definitely helped a lot.
I have actually one quick last question that I'm going to add in here. Do you have any advice for like people who kind of want to try playwriting or want to try dabbling in that? Because I know, especially like as a person of color, our stories are definitely underrepresented out of like in media in general. And so like being a playwright is such a vulnerable experience because you get to kind of make those stories heard in a way, but also like it's such a challenge at the same time to like kind of create them, from different topics. So like, do you have any advice for people who want to try playwriting?
Yes, so I would definitely say just put yourself out there as much as possible. I think for me, when I first graduated from undergrad, I was kind of like just wanting to immerse myself in theater in some type of way, and that's when I found um, Cadence Theater, and I was like, okay, let me intern here so that I can just be behind the scenes and learn the ins and outs if I'm going to write plays. And, you never know what can come from those small steps. So I think, just having that experience and then Cadence coming out with the fellowship and me being able to apply and get in, and then later being able to get into Juilliard, I never thought that all of this would come out of me just interning at a theater, at a local theater, a small local theater. So I think just put yourself in those positions to just be able to learn. And I think like the good things will come like when you do something out of the passion alone. Like you'll get opportunities along the way, I think. So definitely just like do things out of passion, and just kind of like always be open to learning. Put yourself out there. That's the best way to go.
And with that, it does conclude our interview. Thank you so much, Brittany, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, no problem. And good luck on your career. We know you have so much ahead of you. You're really gifted. So.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, this is P.O.C. signing off. Bye.